Rome, 48 AD. Under the scorching October sun, an empress stands before an altar wearing the saffron veil of a virgin bride. Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, swears oaths before the gods. The man beside her is not her husband. Gaius Silius, the youngest senator in Rome, grasps her hand as the priest intones prayers. 200 guests stand silent in the gardens of Lucullus, sweat trailing down silk-clad spines, not from heat but from horror. They are witnessing treason performed in daylight. The Empress of Rome is marrying another man while her emperor husband sits 30 miles away in Ostia. A sheep is brought to the altar, the knife flashes, bright blood streams across white marble. Messalina laughs, the wild-eyed look of someone who has crossed every final boundary. How does a woman dare commit such an unthinkable act? To understand, we must travel back 28 years, to a child born with the blood of empire founders flowing through her veins, and also the blood of those who killed them. Year 20 AD, in a villa on the Palatine Hill, an infant's cry splits the summer night air. Domitia Lepida, princess of Augustus's bloodline, gazes down at her daughter with the cold eyes of someone who has witnessed too many deaths to feel joy. The baby is named Valeria Messalina, merging two of Rome's most powerful dynasties. Through her mother, she descends from Mark Antony, the general who conquered the East and loved Cleopatra so desperately he chose suicide when the Egyptian queen died. Through her grandmother, Antonia Minor, she traces directly to Augustus, the man who transformed Rome from republic to empire. But family legacy carries more than glory. Mark Antony died betrayed. Julia, Augustus's daughter, was exiled for adultery. Agrippina the Elder, Caligula's mother, starved to death on a barren island after Tiberius accused her of conspiracy. Power in this family is not inherited but seized from the corpses of relatives. Messalina's father, Marcus Valerius Messala, is an elderly senator of ancient nobility. He brings prestige but no strength. Real strength lies with Domitia Lepida, a woman who learned that in the palaces of emperors, mercy is fatal weakness. She teaches her daughter through action, not words. When Messalina turns 7, her mother takes her to witness a public execution. At the forum, a family kneels on stone. The father, a senator accused of treason, trembles before the executioner's axe. His wife and 3 children stand behind him, knowing that after he dies, their property will be confiscated and they will become slaves. Emperor Tiberius sits in the imperial box, face like carved stone, a slight nod signaling death. The blade falls. Blood sprays across the togas of nearby witnesses. The senator's eldest son, a 12-year-old boy, screams and lunges toward his father's body. Guards grab the child by his hair, dragging him back, clubbing his head until silence falls. Messalina watches without blinking. Domitia Lepida leans down, whispering into her daughter's ear, "This is what happens to the weak. Remember." The lesson burns into the child's mind like acid eating metal. In the world of Roman royalty, justice and mercy are myths. Only power exists, and calculated brutality. Tiberius rules from Capri Island, where rumors say he organizes perverse sexual games with children and slaves. Those who refuse to serve his appetites are thrown off 300-foot cliffs. Their bodies shatter on rocks below, collected by other terrified slaves awaiting their turn. Young Messalina grows up hearing these stories like bedtime fairy tales. Her grandmother, Antonia Minor, one of the few respected women at court, tells her about Livia, Augustus's wife, who poisoned her way to ensuring her son Tiberius inherited the throne. Livia lived to 86, dying in bed surrounded by glory, while her enemies died in agony and disgrace. Year 37 AD, when Messalina turns 17, Tiberius dies. Some say natural causes, others say Caligula, his nephew and heir, smothered him with a pillow. Whatever the truth, Caligula ascends at 25 with a charming smile and a bottomless, dark heart. The young emperor is initially beloved by the people. He pardons political prisoners, organizes lavish public games, promises a new era of kindness. But 6 months later, a severe illness transforms him completely. When Caligula recovers, he is no longer the same man. He declares himself the living god Jupiter. He demands worship as divinity. He begins sleeping with his three sisters publicly at banquets, making no attempt to hide the incest. He appoints his favorite horse, Incitatus, as senator, building it a marble palace with a gold feeding trough. Messalina observes everything from the sidelines, a girl too young to draw attention but sharp enough to learn. She watches Caligula execute people for not laughing loud enough at his jokes. She sees him rape senators' wives at their own wedding feasts, then publicly critique their bedroom skills. She witnesses him force victims' families to watch their children executed, forbidding tears under threat of joining them. Most importantly, she sees that no one dares stop him. Absolute power means no consequences. Caligula lives by this principle, and during his 4 brief years on the throne, he proves it true. Traditionally, emperors can choose any woman from the imperial family to marry or give in marriage to consolidate power. Caligula takes interest in Messalina, a girl with pure royal blood and blooming beauty. But Domitia Lepida, with keen political instincts, sees signs of coming collapse. Caligula is making too many enemies. The Praetorian Guard whispers. Senators meet in shadows. When Caligula proposes marriage between Messalina and one of his friends, Domitia politely refuses, claiming her daughter is too young. Instead, she arranges a far safer marriage with someone no one could possibly view as threatening. Claudius, Caligula's uncle, is the laughingstock of the entire imperial family. Born 10 BC, he suffers from childhood disability, possibly polio or cerebral palsy. He limps badly, one leg dragging behind. He stutters severely, his head shakes constantly. Drool escapes his mouth when he tries to speak. Claudius's mother, Antonia Minor, calls him a monster that nature began but never finished creating. His sister Livilla openly mocks his condition at parties. Augustus, the first emperor, excluded him from all positions of power, writing in his will that Claudius was unworthy of any public role. Tiberius continues this tradition, refusing Claudius any important office. Caligula treats his uncle like entertainment. The young emperor forces Claudius to perform humiliating acts at parties to amuse guests. He makes Claudius kneel on the floor collecting food scraps with bare hands. He throws coins on the ground and laughs as Claudius crawls to pick up each one. He pours wine over Claudius's head and forces him to sit motionless until his clothes dry. Messalina, at 13, studies this man with the cold calculation of someone twice her age. Claudius is 50, nearly her grandfather's age. He is ugly, weak, friendless at court, but precisely because of this, he is safe. No one sees him as a threat. No one would kill him for power because no one believes he could hold power. More importantly, his weakness means he is controllable. A strong husband would command Messalina. A husband like Claudius would be commanded by Messalina. The 13-year-old girl already understands this arithmetic of power perfectly. The wedding occurs in 39 AD in a small ceremony. Messalina wears traditional Roman bridal robes, face hidden behind veils. Claudius stands beside her, his body wavering with uncertainty, trembling not just from his neurological condition, but from fear of a beautiful young bride. He cannot understand why she accepted him. The priest reads prayers. Sheep are sacrificed. Blood flows. They become husband and wife. Messalina is 14 when the wedding night arrives. Claudius fumbles awkwardly, ashamed of his aging body beside her youthful skin. He apologizes for the inconvenience. Messalina lies still, staring at the ceiling, calculating the future. Her mother Domitia taught her that a woman's body is a tool, not a source of pleasure. Use it wisely and it brings power. Waste it on emotions and it becomes weakness. Year 40 AD, Messalina gives birth to her first child, Claudia Octavia. The baby is healthy, beautiful, and most importantly, proof that Messalina can produce a son, an heir. Claudius rejoices, feeling for the first time in his life that he has accomplished something meaningful. Messalina regards her daughter with clinical interest. The child is a political asset, not a source of love. In the world of Roman royalty, children are pawns in power games, arranged, married, sometimes sacrificed for political advantage. January 24th, 41 AD, history changes in a pool of blood beneath the imperial palace. Caligula, after 4 years ruling through madness and cruelty, has made too many enemies. Cassius Chaerea, a Praetorian Guard officer Caligula routinely mocks for his high voice, leads the conspiracy. At noon, as the emperor leaves theatrical games through a narrow corridor under the palace, assassins strike. Chaerea stabs Caligula first, the blade piercing through his shoulder. The emperor screams, collapsing to stone. Other assassins rush in, stabbing repeatedly. 30 knife wounds. Caligula dies within minutes, crimson pooling from countless injuries, his eyes still wide with surprise. They do not stop there. Guards find Caligula's wife Caesonia and their infant daughter Julia Drusilla in private chambers. One soldier smashes the baby's head against a wall until it dies. They kill Caesonia with a sword through her heart. Imperial family blood forms dark rivers on marble floors. Chaos erupts across the Palatine Hill. Guards are drunk on blood and desperate. They have killed an emperor, and now they need a new emperor quickly, or the Senate will restore the Republic and execute them for treason. They ransack the palace, searching for any member of the imperial family who could succeed. Claudius, hearing screams and knowing conspiracy is unfolding, hides behind a curtain in a small room. He cowers, his disabled body curled in fear, certain he will die like his other relatives. A guardsman passes by, spots Claudius's crippled foot protruding from the curtain. He yanks the fabric aside, finding the pathetic man quivering. But instead of killing him, the soldier looks at Claudius and sees opportunity. Here is the only surviving member of the imperial family, someone the Senate will accept because he is too weak to become a tyrant. The soldier kneels, a gesture both mocking and practical. Ave Imperator, Hail Emperor. Claudius does not understand what is happening. He thinks this is another cruel joke, that they will let him play emperor for a few minutes, then kill him for entertainment. But the Praetorian Guard drags him from the room, carries him through blood-stained corridors, brings him to their barracks. Hundreds of soldiers kneel. They chant his name. Their commander, a practical man named Rufrius Pollio, drapes the purple imperial cloak over Claudius's shoulders. He promises each soldier 15,000 sesterces if they support him. It is an enormous sum, more than 5 years' salary for a soldier. They accept immediately. Claudius becomes emperor not through heroism, not through wisdom, but because soldiers need money and he is the only option remaining. Messalina, 16 and 3 months pregnant, hears the news from a slave who runs into her chamber with terrified eyes. Her husband is emperor. The impossible has happened. The man all Rome mocked is now the most powerful man in the world. And that means Messalina is empress. She sits silently for several minutes, her mind calculating at dizzying speed. Everything has changed. She is no longer the wife of a forgotten failure. She is the second most powerful woman in Rome, surpassed only by her mother-in-law, Antonia Minor, and the elderly woman has withdrawn from public life. In reality, with Claudius overwhelmed by imperial duties and inexperienced in governance, Messalina will wield far more influence than her official position suggests. 20 days after Claudius becomes emperor, Messalina gives birth to a son, Tiberius Claudius Caesar Britannicus, named to honor Claudius's campaign in Britannia. The child is healthy, perfect, and most importantly, the legitimate heir to the empire. Messalina, at 16, is now mother to the crown prince. Her position is unassailable. Even if Claudius dies or is overthrown, her son has the right to claim the throne. She holds Rome's future in her womb, and she knows exactly what that is worth. Claudius, overwhelmed by imperial responsibilities, relies on his freedmen to manage the empire. Narcissus, Pallas, Callistus, and Polybius, all former slaves Claudius freed, now run the Roman government. Narcissus handles correspondence. Pallas manages finances. Callistus oversees petitions and requests. Polybius deals with scholarly works and cultural advisement. These men, once slaves, are now wealthier and more powerful than most senators. They live in palaces, dress in silk, make decisions shaping the fate of millions. The Senate hates them. But the Senate fears Claudius, or rather fears the Praetorian Guard backing Claudius, so they remain silent and resentful. Messalina sees opportunity in this power structure. Claudius is weak, easily manipulated. The freedmen are greedy, can be bought. The Senate is terrified, can be controlled. And she, as the emperor's wife and mother of the heir, has access to all of them. She begins carefully building her network of influence. First, she establishes alliance with Narcissus, the most powerful freedman. Narcissus is a practical man who understands his fate is tied to Britannicus. If the child succeeds, Narcissus continues in power. If someone else seizes the throne, Narcissus might be executed. Therefore, he has interest in keeping Messalina happy. She understands this, and she uses it. She makes a simple offer. She will protect Narcissus's position with Claudius, and Narcissus will support her requests. The requests start small: appointing a friend to a minor position, approving a construction contract. Narcissus agrees, seeing no harm, but the requests gradually grow larger. The first threat to Messalina's position comes from within the family. Julia Livilla, Claudius's niece, is a beautiful and intelligent woman in her 20s. She was exiled by Caligula for adultery, but Claudius, in a generous gesture upon taking power, recalled her to Rome and restored her property. Julia Livilla quickly becomes a star of Roman society. She is lovely, educated, favored by the Senate for her graceful manner and intellect. Men are enchanted by her. Women envy her. Most importantly, Claudius likes her. The emperor, who rarely receives respect, feels valued by Julia Livilla's attention. She listens to him discuss his historical research. She laughs at his jokes. She makes him feel like a normal man, not a crippled object of mockery. Messalina notices Claudius's attention shifting. She sees how he looks at Julia Livilla with admiration he never showed his wife. She understands that if Claudius tires of her, he might divorce and marry Julia Livilla. Rome has precedent for emperors divorcing for political reasons. Augustus forced his former wife Scribonia to divorce him so he could marry Livia. Tiberius divorced his beloved wife to marry Augustus's daughter for political advantage. If Claudius believes Julia Livilla would make a better empress, he could remove Messalina. And if that happens, Messalina knows her fate. Former wives of emperors do not retire peacefully. They are exiled, isolated, often quietly killed to prevent them becoming focal points for opposition factions. Messalina, at 16, decides Julia Livilla must die. She needs a legitimate charge. Accusing someone directly of treason would be too obvious, too suspicious. Instead, she chooses a charge proven effective in eliminating powerful women: adultery. Under the Julian laws enacted by Augustus, adultery is a criminal offense for noble women, punishable by exile and property confiscation. Messalina only needs a collaborative partner, a man famous enough to make the accusation credible. She chooses Seneca, the renowned Stoic philosopher and tutor to the nobility. Seneca is intelligent, handsome, has a close relationship with Julia Livilla from studying philosophical texts together. Messalina begins spreading rumors. She arranges for slaves to accidentally witness Seneca and Julia Livilla alone together. She has other slaves overhear ambiguous conversations about affection. She ensures these rumors spread through noble households, each retelling adding more salacious details. Within weeks, all Rome whispers that Julia Livilla is having sexual relations with Seneca. When rumors reach their peak, Messalina approaches Claudius privately. She weeps, a carefully calculated performance of pain. She tells him she did not want to believe the rumors, but the evidence is overwhelming. Julia Livilla and Seneca have betrayed his trust. They are not only having sexual relations, but conspiring against him. Seneca, as an influential philosopher, supposedly said Claudius is unworthy to be emperor, that Julia Livilla deserves a better man. Messalina has no real evidence, but she does not need any. Claudius, insecure and easily manipulated, believes his wife. He is angry at the betrayal, hurt that people he trusted held him in contempt. He orders immediate arrests. Julia Livilla is seized at her villa. She denies the charges, begs for a fair trial. Messalina ensures she receives none. Instead of a public trial, Claudius handles the matter privately, with Messalina and Narcissus as his primary advisors. They present evidence, testimony from slaves tortured until they say what Messalina wants, forged letters suggesting romantic involvement, reports of secret meetings that never occurred. Claudius, overwhelmed by the volume of proof, declares Julia Livilla guilty. The sentence: exile to the island of Pandateria, a small barren rock off the Italian coast. Julia Livilla is taken away in chains, screaming her innocence until her voice goes hoarse. On the island, she is confined to a small hut, given minimal food and water. No slaves, no visitors, no hope. After 3 months, she dies of starvation and thirst, her body found in the hut, skeletal and rotting. Messalina never mentions her again. Seneca, being a nobleman, escapes execution, but is exiled to Corsica. He begs for mercy, writes letters to Claudius apologizing for any misunderstanding. Messalina wants him dead, but Narcissus advises against it. Killing a famous philosopher might provoke backlash from intellectuals. Better to let him slowly die in exile. Forgotten. Seneca spends 8 years on Corsica, writing bitter philosophical essays about injustice and fate's cruelty. He will return to Rome later, but he never forgets Messalina's role in destroying his life. Julia Livilla's elimination sends a clear message to everyone at court. Messalina can and will destroy anyone threatening her. She needs no evidence. She only needs will to act and ability to manipulate Claudius. Fear spreads through noble families. Women avoid Messalina, not daring to compete with her beauty or influence. Men are careful speaking with her, knowing one wrong word could be twisted into treason. The young empress, barely past 17, has created a terror regime through selective elimination. She does not need to kill hundreds like Caligula. A few strategic deaths are enough to keep everyone compliant. But political power is not Messalina's only priority. She discovers another sensation, one her cold upbringing did not prepare her for: lust. Claudius, old and weak, cannot satisfy the needs of a young woman. He tries with painful embarrassment and clumsiness, but his body cannot keep pace with her desires. After Britannicus's birth, doctors advise Claudius to limit sexual activity to protect his failing health. He follows this advice gladly, viewing rest from marital duties as relief. Messalina, left alone at night in her vast bedroom, feels an emptiness that no political scheming can fill. She begins observing men at court with new eyes, not as political partners, but as objects of desire. The first man is Mestor, a pantomime actor famous throughout Rome. Nestor is beautiful as a Greek statue, with perfect features and a body honed through years of performance. He is a star, admired by crowds, desired by noble women, with a notorious history. Caligula loved him, kissed him passionately in public during theatrical performances, kept him at the palace for private revels. Nestor survived Caligula by becoming invaluable as a performer, someone even the emperor's enemies wanted to watch. When Messalina sends him an invitation, he politely refuses. He knows the danger of becoming an empress's lover. Such lovers often end up dead when they know too much or when the empress tires of them. Nestor values his life more than any pleasure Messalina could provide. Messalina is unaccustomed to refusal. She considers the problem, then realizes the solution. She approaches Claudius with a request. Nestor, she explains, is a great artist, and she wants to learn dance and performance from him to improve her social skills at imperial events. But Nestor is too busy and keeps refusing her invitations. Could Claudius issue an official order from Nestor to serve the empress? Claudius, unsuspecting, sees this as a harmless request. He signs an imperial decree commanding Nestor to obey all of Messalina's requests. The decree is sealed with the emperor's signet and sent to Nestor. The actor reads it with rising dread. He cannot refuse an emperor's command without committing treason. He is trapped, and he knows it. The first time Nestor comes to Messalina's private chambers, he tries maintaining professional boundaries. He begins teaching her dance movements. Messalina interrupts him by removing her robe. He stands frozen, eyes wide. She steps closer, placing her hand on his chest. The emperor's decree commands him to obey all her requests. Does he refuse? Nestor looks into her eyes and sees danger there. The loss of control of someone who has crossed all boundaries. He realizes resistance means death. He submits. The affair continues for months. Messalina summons Nestor whenever she wants, day or night. She makes no attempt to hide his presence in her chambers. Slaves see him come and go. Courtiers whisper. Claudius, busy with imperial work and trusting his wife, does not notice. Or perhaps he notices but chooses not to see, afraid of confronting a truth that would force him to act. A weak emperor often prefers denial to confrontation. Messalina begins collecting other lovers, gladiators from the Colosseum, their muscles taut from combat, bringing a wild danger that makes her feel alive. Young senators, ambitious and frightened, serve her to advance their political careers. Slaves who have no right to refuse are used and discarded like objects. She converts a wing of the Palatine Palace into a private space for her pleasures. The rooms are decorated lavishly, with large beds draped in silk, erotic wall paintings from Pompeii, wine flowing freely. She hosts parties here, inviting noble couples with invitations they cannot refuse without risking offense to the empress. At these parties, boundaries between social and sexual blur. What begins as dinner ends in bedrooms, with guests engaging in acts they will never later acknowledge. Messalina uses these events as control tools. A senator whose wife participates in an orgy cannot later speak against the empress without exposing his own participation. Those accepting this public humiliation receive offices, wealth, imperial favor. Those refusing too strongly disappear. One senator who publicly declared he would never let his wife attend Messalina's parties is found dead in his home after a week, apparently suicide. His wife, when questioned, confirms her husband died by his own hand, though fear in her eyes tells a different story. Other senators learn the lesson. They send their wives to the parties, gritting teeth through humiliation to preserve their lives and positions. But even palace pleasures are not enough to satisfy Messalina's growing hunger for transgression. She wants something more forbidden, something more dangerous, something her absolute power as empress cannot protect if discovered. She remembers childhood stories about emperors and empresses disguising themselves to experience common people's lives. Nero, years later, will wander streets at night disguised as a commoner, starting fights and raping passers-by. Messalina has a different plan. She wants to experience what no empress has ever experienced, the life of a prostitute. On nights when Claudius is busy with his manuscripts or sleeping soundly, Messalina prepares her transformation. She removes the jewelry of an empress, gold bracelets, pearl necklaces, diadem. She wears a simple tunic of a working woman, rough undyed cloth. She puts on a blonde wig to hide her distinctive black hair. With the disguise complete, she looks like any ordinary woman in Rome, someone no one would glance at twice on the street. She slips from the palace through a secret exit she discovered, a small door used by slaves, and walks down the Palatine Hill into darkness. The Suburra district, Rome's red light quarter, is a maze of narrow alleys, noisy taverns, cheap brothels. This is where the empire's dreams die in shadows, where drunken soldiers brawl, where criminals hide, where desperation is bought and sold for a few coins. The brothels of Suburra, called lupanars, are simple establishments, often just a series of small cells around a courtyard. Each cell has a bed, a basin of water, barely enough space for two people. The prostitutes working here are not the high-class courtesans of the nobility. They are desperate women, slaves, bankrupts, widows with no other means of survival. They serve as sailors, peddlers, freedmen, anyone with a few sesterces and basic desire. Messalina enters one of these lupanars and speaks with the madam, an old woman named Rosa, with a wrinkled face and eyes that have seen too much to be surprised by anything. Messalina, using the false name Lysiska, says she needs work, that she is desperate for money. Rosa looks her up and down, assessing the merchandise. Young girl, beautiful, clean, she will attract customers. Rosa assigns her a cell, a small cave with a wooden plaque on the door, bearing the name Lysiska carved into it. Messalina steps inside, surveys the simple bed and four bare walls, feels a strange thrill. This is where she, Empress of Rome, will become nobody, just an object to be used. The first customer is a sailor smelling of salt and sweat. He does not look at her face, does not care who she is. He pays his coins, uses her body, leaves without a word. Messalina lies on the bed afterward, feeling the stain of her own degradation, and she laughs. In her entire life, no one has treated her this way, like a worthless object with no power, no importance, and it excites her more than all her power as empress. She returns every night. She services craftsmen, slaves, soldiers, anyone who comes. She never speaks much, fearing her educated voice will reveal her. She simply performs the work, night after night, collecting men like trophies. One night, a Praetorian guard enters the lupanar. Messalina recognizes him. He is one of the guards at the palace gates. If he recognizes her, the scandal would be uncontrollable. But he is drunk, eyes glazed with cheap wine. He chooses Lysiska, not knowing who she is. Messalina services him, heart pounding in her chest, part fear and part exhilaration. He uses her roughly, unconcerned with her comfort, and when he finishes, he leaves without looking back. He never knows he slept with his empress. Messalina lies in the darkness, laughing softly. She nearly got caught, and the thrill of near escape is better than any physical pleasure. When dawn comes, she leaves the lupanar, tired with men but never satisfied, in the words Juvenal will later write about her. She replaces the wig, pulling it low over her face, walks back to the palace through empty streets. She slips into her chambers, removes the disguise, bathes in perfumed water to wash away Suburra's smell. When slaves come to dress her in the morning, she is empress again, perfect surface uncracked. But beneath the silk and pearls, she carries the scent of the brothels, a phantom smell only she can detect, a reminder of the secret life she leads in darkness. The Praetorian Guard never learns that the prostitute he mounted in Suburra was the woman whose image appears on imperial coins. He returns to his post the next morning with a hangover, joking with fellow soldiers about the blonde whore who serviced him for 3 sesterces. Messalina, bathed and perfumed, sits beside Claudius at breakfast as he discusses his latest historical manuscript about Etruscan civilization. The emperor notices nothing unusual about his wife. Why would he? She performs her role flawlessly, nodding at appropriate moments, asking intelligent questions about ancient customs, embodying everything a Roman empress should be. Only the faintest shadow under her eyes betrays the night's activities, and Claudius's vision is too poor to notice such details. He continues explaining his theories about Etruscan alphabet origins, while Messalina calculates how many nights she can risk returning to the lupanar before someone more observant than a drunk soldier recognizes her. The addiction to danger grows stronger with each escape. Juvenal will later write that she returned from the brothels, tired with men but never satisfied, a phrase capturing the paradox at Messalina's core. Physical exhaustion means nothing to her. What she craves is the perpetual edge of discovery, the moment when everything could shatter, when her double life could explode into public scandal. Each successful night in Suburra raises the stakes, demanding she push further the next time. She begins taking greater risks, choosing customers who might recognize imperial features beneath the blonde wig, lingering in the lupanar until dawn approaches dangerously close to the palace's waking hour, even speaking occasionally in her educated accent, just to feel terror spike through her veins when a customer's eyes narrow with confusion before wine-fogged comprehension fails him. But why can Messalina not stop? The question haunts Narcissus, who has begun assembling fragments of information that terrify him. His network of informants is extensive, built over years of freedman politics, and whispers reach him about the Empress's nocturnal activities. He does not yet have proof solid enough to present to Claudius, only troubling reports that the Empress leaves the palace after dark, disguised, destination unknown. Narcissus understands power addiction from personal experience. He was born a slave, owned like furniture, his life worth less than a good horse. When Claudius freed him and elevated him to secretary, Narcissus discovered that power is the most potent drug in existence. Each decision he makes affects thousands of lives. Each morning he wakes in silk sheets rather than slave quarters provides euphoric validation. He has spent 2 decades cultivating this position, and he knows one thing with absolute certainty. Power unchecked always seeks greater transgression, because boundaries are what give power meaning. Without limits to violate, power becomes hollow. Messalina has spent her entire life watching violence without consequence. She witnessed Tiberius order executions casually. She saw Caligula rape and murder for entertainment. She learned from her mother that ruthlessness brings rewards. Now, as empress with a weak husband and no institutional restraints, she tests the ultimate question: How far can I go before something stops me? The answer appears to be very far indeed. By year 42 AD, Messalina has constructed a parallel government operating through sexual leverage and strategic elimination. Her method is elegant in its brutality. She identifies a wealthy target, fabricates charges, orchestrates their conviction, seizes their assets. The confiscated wealth flows into three streams: 60% to Messalina's private treasury, 25% to Narcissus for facilitating the legal mechanisms, 15% to Pallas for managing the financial transfers. This arrangement makes her partners in crime rich beyond imagination, binding them to her through shared guilt. Narcissus commands a personal fortune of 300 million sesterces, more wealth than most provincial governors accumulate in a lifetime. Pallas owns estates across Italy, marble villas in Baiae, entire fleets of merchant ships. They cannot expose Messalina without exposing themselves, and so they enable her, telling themselves they are simply surviving in a corrupt system. But Narcissus has begun keeping records in secret, compiling evidence he will hold as insurance against the day when Messalina's recklessness forces him to act. The victims accumulate. Marcus Vinicius, a former consul married to Julia Livilla's sister, objects too loudly to Livilla's execution. Within a month, he dies of sudden illness. Poison is suspected but never proven. Appius Silanus, who Claudius briefly considered as a potential son-in-law before Messalina intervened, is accused of plotting to assassinate the emperor. He is executed at dawn before any proper investigation can occur. His property, including valuable estates in Narbonese Gaul, transfers to Messalina's holdings. Decimus Valerius Asiaticus, the wealthiest man in Rome after the emperor, owns the legendary gardens of Lucullus, the most beautiful property in the city. Messalina wants those gardens. She covets them with an intensity that surprises even her, spending nights planning how she will redecorate them, imagining the parties she will host among the sculpted hedges and marble fountains. To obtain them, she accuses Asiaticus of adultery with Poppaea Sabina, one of Rome's most beautiful women. The charge is absurd on its face. Both Asiaticus and Poppaea are married to other people, and no evidence of an affair exists. But Messalina manufactures testimony through her usual methods. Slaves are tortured until they describe witnessing passionate encounters in detail. Letters are forged describing secret meetings. Messalina personally testifies before Claudius in private, weeping as she describes how Asiaticus and Poppaea mock the emperor in their supposedly treasonous conversations. Claudius orders Asiaticus to appear before him for judgment. The trial, if it can be called that, occurs in the emperor's private chambers, with only Messalina and Narcissus present. Asiaticus, a battle-hardened general who commanded legions in Britannia, realizes immediately he is doomed. No defense will be heard, no evidence will be examined. The empress wants his property, and the emperor will give it to her. Asiaticus makes one request. He asks to die in his beloved gardens, rather than be executed like a common criminal. Claudius, feeling a flicker of guilt, grants this mercy. Asiaticus returns home, walks through the gardens one final time, trails his fingers along marble statuary he commissioned from Greek artisans, breathes deeply the scent of roses he planted with his own hands 5 years earlier. Then he enters the bathhouse, opens his veins with a sharp blade, and bleeds out in warm water while watching the sky through the open roof. His last words to his attending freedmen are, "Tell my wife the gardens are more beautiful than I remembered." Messalina visits the gardens the same afternoon Asiaticus dies. She walks through the gate still slick with blood from where slaves carried out the body. She examines the property with the eye of a new owner, already planning changes. The rose garden will be expanded. The fountain will be replaced with something grander. The guest pavilion will be torn down and rebuilt with better marble. She does not think about Asiaticus, whose blood has barely dried. He served his purpose by dying and transferring ownership. His suffering is irrelevant. Only the property matters, and now it belongs to her. She christens her acquisition by hosting an orgy there 3 days later. Noble couples coupling on the same grass where Asiaticus used to walk at dawn. The symbolism is not lost on anyone who attends. This is what happens when you possess something Messalina desires. Your death, your shame, your legacy, all become footnotes to her pleasure. Poppaea Sabina, falsely accused of adultery with Asiaticus, fares no better. Though she never had relations with the man, the accusation itself is enough to destroy her. Messalina adds a second charge. Poppaea supposedly practices witchcraft, using love potions and curses to influence court politics. The evidence is laughable. A few herbs found in Poppaea's bedroom that any Roman housewife might possess. But under torture, one of Poppaea's slaves confesses that his mistress invoked dark gods to curse the empress with infertility. This is particularly clever, since Messalina has already borne two healthy children, making the curse obviously ineffective. Yet the accusation of attempting such magic is still a capital crime. Poppaea is given a choice: exile with total property confiscation, or suicide with a portion of her estate going to her daughter. She chooses the latter, opening her veins with dignity, her daughter Poppaea, Sabina the younger, watching through tears. The younger Poppaea is 12 years old. She will never forget this moment. 20 years later, as Nero's wife, she will help orchestrate the fall of the entire Claudian dynasty, avenging her mother's death by ensuring Britannicus never reaches the throne. But in 42 AD, she is just a child watching her mother die for crimes she did not commit, learning that imperial whim can destroy anyone. The machinery of confiscation becomes industrialized. Messalina does not personally oversee every execution anymore. She has established a bureaucracy of death. Narcissus maintains lists of wealthy citizens, their properties cataloged with meticulous detail. When Messalina needs money for a particular purpose, she reviews the list and selects targets based on wealth and vulnerability. Senators with young heirs are vulnerable, easy to accuse, and their families lack political clout to fight back. Wealthy freedmen are particularly vulnerable. They accumulated fortunes but lack senatorial protection. Foreign merchants living in Rome are the most vulnerable of all. They can be accused of espionage or illegal trade, expelled, their businesses seized with no legal recourse. Over 3 years, Messalina accumulates a personal fortune estimated at 400 million sesterces. She owns villas in every major city of Italy, estates producing wine and olive oil across the provinces, warehouses full of Egyptian grain, ships carrying Spanish silver, mines in Dacia operated by slave labor. She is, apart from Claudius himself, the wealthiest individual in the empire. And still she wants more, because wealth, like power, loses meaning without transgression to give it purpose. Messalina discovers that no amount of gold satisfies her. She commissions a solid gold statue of herself, life-sized, placed in her private chambers. She wears a different dress every day, never the same garment twice, each one discarded after a single use. She bathes in milk brought fresh from goats kept on palace grounds. She eats lark's tongues and peacock brains, delicacies so expensive that a single meal costs more than a soldier's annual salary. None of it fills the emptiness. She lies awake at night in her perfumed bedroom, surrounded by luxury beyond comprehension, and feels the same gnawing hunger that drove her to Suburra. The hunger is not for sex or money or power. The hunger is for proof that she exists, that she matters, that the world will bend to her will. Every limit she crosses resets the baseline, demanding a new limit to cross. It is the logic of addiction applied to existence itself. Year 48, AD summer. Messalina hears about a famous courtesan named Sylla, a professional who services the highest echelons of Roman society. Sylla commands extraordinary fees, 100 sesterces per encounter, more than most Romans earn in a month. Because her skills are legendary, senators praise her. Wealthy merchants compete for appointments with her. She is the gold standard of her profession, unmatched in beauty, technique, and stamina. Someone at one of Messalina's parties mentions Sylla, joking that not even the empress could match such a professional. The comment is meant lightly, flattery wrapped in humor, but Messalina hears it as a challenge. The empress is accustomed to being the superlative in every category that matters to her. Most beautiful, most feared, most sexually voracious. The suggestion that a mere prostitute might surpass her is intolerable. Within hours, she has made a decision. She will challenge Sylla to a competition, and she will win, and everyone in Rome will know that Messalina has no equal in any domain. The challenge is issued through intermediaries. Messalina sends a representative to Sylla's residence. She maintains elegant apartments near the Forum, a sign of her success, with a proposal. A competition to determine who can service more men in 24 consecutive hours. The prize is bragging rights and the permanent title of Rome's most accomplished woman in matters of physical endurance. Sylla, when she hears the offer, laughs initially, thinking it is a joke. Then she realizes the representative is serious. The Empress of Rome wants to compete sexually with a prostitute. The absurdity is breathtaking. Sylla's first instinct is to refuse. Nothing good can come from competing with imperial power. But the representative makes clear that refusal will be interpreted as concession of defeat. Sylla's professional reputation is at stake. If she declines and word spreads that she feared competing with the Empress, her career will suffer. Clients will question whether her legendary status was exaggeration all along. Reluctantly, Sylla accepts, setting conditions to ensure fairness. The competition will be witnessed by neutral observers. Men will be selected randomly from a pool of volunteers. No drugs or stimulants permitted. The same physician will examine both women before and after to verify no cheating occurs. Messalina agrees to every term. She does not need to cheat. Confidence in her own capacity borders on messianic certainty. The location chosen is one of Suburra's larger lupanars, cleared for the day and reserved exclusively for this purpose. 2 adjacent cells are prepared, identical in every way, each with a simple bed, a water basin, and a window opening onto the courtyard where observers will maintain count. Scribes are stationed with wax tablets to record each encounter, noting the time and duration. A water clock is placed in the courtyard, visible to all, marking the passage of hours. Pliny the Elder, the famous naturalist currently serving as fleet commander in Misenum, happens to be in Rome on imperial business. He hears about the competition through court gossip and, consumed by scientific curiosity, secures permission to attend as an official observer. For Pliny, this is an anthropological phenomenon, a chance to document human behavior at its extremes. He will later write about what he witnesses with the clinical detachment of a scholar examining an unusual species of insect. The competition begins at sunset on the appointed day. 24 hours from now, at the same position of the sun the following evening, the final count will be recorded. Sylla arrives first, dressed professionally, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who has done this work for years. She is 28, in the prime of her profession, her body toned and her technique refined through thousands of encounters. She nods to the observers, enters her cell, lies down on the bed, and waits. Messalina arrives disguised, wearing her Lysiska wig, wrapped in a common cloak. She does not want anyone recognizing the Empress competing in such an event, though rumors will spread regardless. She enters her cell without ceremony, removes the cloak, lies on the bed, and stares at the ceiling. For the first time in months, she feels truly alive. Everything has led to this moment. All her transgressions, all her violations of social norms, all her accumulation of power. It all culminates here, in a filthy lupanar cell, competing to prove she is more sexually insatiable than the most insatiable woman in Rome. The first men are admitted at the sun's precise moment of setting. They are volunteers from Suburra's daily population. Laborers, soldiers on leave, freedmen, shopkeepers, men who heard about the competition and arrived hoping to participate. Each man pays a token fee, 1 sesterce, which will be donated to the Temple of Venus after the competition. The payment transforms the event from mere spectacle into something approaching religious ritual, a sacrifice to the goddess of love and lust. The first hour is straightforward. Messalina services 3 men in rapid succession, each encounter lasting approximately 15 minutes. She uses efficient technique, focused on speed rather than mutual pleasure, treating each man as a task to complete. Across the courtyard, Sylla services 3 men as well in the same period, using superior expertise to maintain pace. The professional skill shows in her economy of movement. By the end of hour 1, both women are tied 3-3. Hours 2 through 6 see intense competition. Messalina's advantage lies in raw stamina and willingness to ignore her own discomfort. She does not break for water or rest, pushing through pain and fatigue with the grim determination of someone for whom losing is not conceivable. Scylla, conversely, knows her limits. She takes brief pauses between encounters to rinse, to drink, to maintain herself. These pauses slow her total count, but keep her at peak efficiency. By hour 6, as midnight approaches, Scylla has serviced 11 men to Messalina's 10. The gap is narrow. Pliny, observing from the courtyard, notes that both women show signs of physical strain. Messalina has begun bleeding slightly, evidence of tissue trauma. Scylla moves more slowly, fatigue visible in her movements. Yet neither stops. Neither asks for respite. The men continue arriving, an apparently endless supply, each paying his sesterce, each receiving his turn. The overnight hours are brutal. Darkness brings no relief. Torches illuminate the courtyard, casting dancing shadows that make the scene feel surreal, dreamlike, a vision from Bacchus's wildest revelries. Messalina drinks wine between encounters now, using alcohol to numb the pain. Her technique has devolved into pure endurance rather than any pretense of skill. She lies on her back, spreads her legs, allows each man to use her body, stares at the ceiling until he finishes. The procession becomes mechanical, rhythmic, hypnotic. Man enters, man mounts, man finishes, man leaves, next man enters. The pattern repeats so many times that individual encounters blur into a single extended violation. Scylla, better trained for marathon sessions, maintains more composure. She varies her techniques, using hands and mouth strategically to accelerate completion, preserving her body where possible. Her professionalism shows. By dawn at hour 12, the count stands at Scylla 16, Messalina 15. The professional maintains her narrow lead. If the pattern holds, Scylla will win, but Messalina does not accept defeat. As morning light filters through the lupanar's dirty windows, she experiences something like transcendence. Pain no longer registers. Exhaustion becomes irrelevant. Her body is simply a vehicle for her will, and her will is absolute. She stops drinking wine. She stops taking breaks. She becomes a machine processing men. Hour 13, 2 men. Hour 14, 3 men. Hour 15, 2 men. The numbers begin accumulating steadily. Scylla, watching the count boards in the courtyard during her own brief rests, feels a flicker of concern. The amateur is matching her pace through sheer insane persistence. By hour 18, 6 hours remaining until the competition ends, the count shows Scylla 22, Messalina 21. Still close. Scylla realizes she is in a real competition now. This strange blonde woman, whoever she actually is beneath the obvious disguise, possesses demonic stamina. Scylla summons her pride. She has a reputation to maintain. She increases her pace despite screaming protest from abused tissue. Hour 19, 2 men. Hour 20, 2 men, but Messalina matches her. Hour 19, 2 men. Hour 20, 2 men. The count at hour 20 shows both women at 25. Dead even with 4 hours remaining. The final hours are agony for both women. Scylla's technique has deteriorated to Messalina's level. Pure mechanical endurance, no longer anything resembling skill or pleasure. Both women simply lie and endure, their bodies used continuously, no break long enough to recover any sensation besides pain. The men keep arriving. Some are drunk now, emboldened by morning tavern visits. Some are curious, having heard rumors spreading through Suburra about the legendary competition. Some are simply taking advantage of opportunity, sex for one sesterce being an exceptional bargain, regardless of circumstance. Hour 21. Messalina, 2 men, Scylla 1. Hour 22. Messalina, 1 man, Scylla 2. Hour 23. Messalina, 1 man, Scylla 1. The count stands at Messalina 29, Scylla 29, with 1 hour remaining. Everything depends on the final hour. Both women are bleeding now, both moving like automatons, both far beyond any sane limit of human endurance. Pliny, still observing with scientific fascination, will later write that he witnessed something unprecedented in his decades of studying nature. 2 humans pushing biological limits to the absolute maximum capacity. The final hour becomes a sprint. Messalina, sensing victory within reach, summons reserves she did not know existed. She ignores the blood. She ignores the pain. She ignores everything except the single imperative to win. First man, 12 minutes. Second man, 10 minutes. She is maintaining pace, impossibly, in the final hour when exhaustion should be overwhelming. Scylla tries to match. Third man, 13 minutes. Fourth man, 15 minutes. But she is slowing, finally broken. Her body simply cannot continue at the required speed. After the fourth man leaves, Scylla's legs buckle. She collapses on the bed, unable to rise. The madam enters, checks on her, helps her drink water. Scylla tries to stand, tries to continue, but her muscles will not respond. She has reached her absolute limit. Messalina, lying on her filthy bed, soaked with blood and fluids, watches the last minutes drain through the water clock. 5 minutes remain when another man arrives. She does not think she can physically endure one more encounter. Every part of her body screams in agony, but the imperative to win overrides biological protest. She gestures for him to proceed. He mounts her, and she lies beneath him, staring at the ceiling, wondering distantly if she will die here, if her body will simply give out, if she has finally found the limit that stops her. 3 minutes on the clock. 2, 1. The man finishes, dismounts, leaves the cell. The water clock empties its final drops. Sunset arrives. The competition ends. Final count. Messalina, 25, Scylla 24. Pliny records the number in his notes with meticulous precision. He has witnessed something historically significant. This woman defeated a professional prostitute through sheer inhuman will. He does not know the blonde woman is actually the Empress, but he knows he has documented an achievement that will echo through centuries. He will include this account in his natural history, alongside observations about unusual plant species and rare animal behavior. For Pliny, Messalina's achievement is a natural phenomenon, proof that human capacity for transgression exceeds all rational expectation. Messalina is carried from the lupanar by servants who arrived with a covered litter. She can barely walk. Blood stains her thighs. Her vagina is torn and swollen beyond recognition. A physician waits at the palace, sworn to secrecy, who treats her injuries and prescribes bed rest for a week. But beneath the pain, beneath the physical devastation, Messalina feels something like euphoria. She won. She proved herself superior to the best professional in Rome. She achieved a record that will stand for centuries, impossible for any normal human to replicate. She has transcended ordinary limits and become something else, something mythic. The record will become her legacy, the one achievement that survives all attempts to erase her name from history. 20 centuries later, people who know nothing else about her life will know this: the Empress who serviced 25 men in 24 hours. The number becomes immortal. But victory brings an unexpected consequence: emptiness. Lying in her bedroom recovering, unable to walk without pain, Messalina realizes she has reached the peak of transgression. What boundary remains to cross? She has killed political rivals. She has accumulated obscene wealth. She has transformed the imperial palace into a brothel. She has competed with and defeated Rome's most famous prostitute. What violation is left? For the first time since childhood, Messalina feels something approaching fear, not of external threats, but of internal void. Power without limits becomes a prison. When everything is permitted, nothing matters. When all boundaries have been crossed, existence becomes a flat plain with no landmarks, no direction, no purpose. She needs a new transgression, something bigger than sex or murder or wealth. She needs something that will destroy her completely if she fails, because only by risking total annihilation can she feel alive again. The answer arrives in the form of Gaius Silius. He is 35 years old in 42 AD when they first meet, already a senator despite his relative youth, famous for being the most handsome man in Rome. Silius possesses the kind of masculine perfection that stops conversation when he enters a room: tall, broad-shouldered, chiseled features, dark eyes that convey both intelligence and danger. More importantly, he is ambitious, hungry for power in a way that mirrors Messalina's own hunger. He has a wife, Junia Silana, a noble woman from an old family, beautiful in her own right. But Messalina does not care about existing marriages. She has never cared. When she sees Silius at a Senate session where wives are permitted to observe, sitting in the gallery above while Claudius delivers a rambling speech about aqueduct maintenance, she feels something she has not felt since adolescence. Genuine attraction, not just physical hunger, but something deeper, a recognition of a kindred spirit. Silius looks up at the gallery during a particularly tedious section of Claudius's speech, catches Messalina's eye, holds her gaze for 3 seconds longer than propriety allows. The message is clear. He sees her. He wants her. He is not afraid of her. The affair begins within a week. Messalina summons Silius to the palace under pretense of discussing a political matter. He arrives, is escorted to her private chambers, finds her alone wearing silk that reveals more than it conceals. She does not bother with subtlety. "Your wife is beautiful," her voice carrying an edge that makes clear this is not a compliment, but a threat. Silius understands immediately. "Not as beautiful as you, Augusta." The title is formal, distant, but his tone is intimate. They become lovers that afternoon, coupling with the intensity of two people who recognize each other as equals in appetite and ruthlessness. Unlike Menester or the gladiators or the anonymous men from Suburra, Silius is not a toy or a conquest. He is a partner, someone Messalina can talk to after sex, sharing ambitions and schemes rather than simply dismissing him when satisfaction is achieved. For the first time in her life, Messalina experiences something resembling love, though the feeling is so tangled with lust and power hunger that separating the strands becomes impossible. Junia Silana, Silius's wife, presents an obstacle. Messalina handles it with characteristic efficiency. Within a month, Junia dies of sudden illness. Poison is the obvious cause, though no investigation is conducted. Claudius, when informed that Senator Silius has lost his wife, sends condolences and a small financial gift. Standard imperial courtesy for a bereaved noble. He does not know because no one dares tell him that his own wife orchestrated the murder. Silius is furious initially. Junia was an innocent, guilty of nothing except marrying him. But his fury burns out quickly when confronted with Messalina's cold logic. "She was in the way. Now she isn't. You can mourn her, or you can enjoy the power I can give you. Choose." Silius, after 3 days of internal struggle, chooses power. He becomes Messalina's constant companion, no longer bothering to hide their relationship. They are seen together at the theater, at the baths, riding through Rome in open litters. Palace servants witness Silius spending entire nights in the Empress's chambers, leaving at dawn disheveled and satisfied. The whispers grow from murmurs to open discussion, but no one confronts Claudius directly. The emperor seems oblivious, or perhaps willfully blind, unable to face the truth that his wife has taken another man openly and publicly. The relationship transforms Messalina in unexpected ways. She becomes reckless, careless about appearances, drunk on the feeling of being desired by someone she desires in return. She begins giving Silius gifts from the imperial treasury, estates confiscated from executed traitors, valuable artwork from palace collections, even items of Claudius's personal property. She transfers ownership of the gardens of Lucullus to Silius's name, an extraordinarily provocative gesture given that everyone knows those gardens were stolen from Asiaticus through false accusations. She essentially gives Silius murdered men's property, publicly declaring him her favored consort. Narcissus watches all this with growing alarm. He summons courage to warn Messalina in private. "Augusta, you are being too open. The Senate notices, the Praetorians notice, even Claudius will eventually notice. This recklessness will destroy us all." Messalina's response is immediate and vicious. "If you betray me, Narcissus, I will ensure Britannicus knows you opposed his mother. Think carefully about your loyalty." The threat is clear. Narcissus's power depends on Britannicus eventually becoming emperor. If Messalina turns her son against him, Narcissus's entire future collapses. He retreats, silenced but not convinced, and begins secretly expanding his evidence files. Not to use now, but to hold as insurance against the day when her recklessness finally forces action. Year 48 AD, August. Silius makes a proposal that crosses the final boundary. They are lying in Messalina's bed, dawn light filtering through silk curtains, both sated from hours of passion. Silius traces his finger along her collarbone, voice deceptively casual. "Marry me." Messalina, half asleep, does not fully process the words initially. "We cannot marry. I am already married to the emperor." Silius rolls onto his side, looking directly into her eyes. "Divorce him. Marry me. Make me emperor." The room becomes very still. Messalina's breath catches. "That is treason." Silius smiles, a predator's expression. "Only if we fail." The logic unfolds rapidly in Messalina's mind. Claudius is 58 years old, sick, increasingly confused. He could die naturally any day. If she divorces him and marries Silius before Claudius dies, then when death comes, Silius as her husband could claim guardianship over Britannicus and rule as regent until the boy comes of age. Or more likely, Silius could adopt Britannicus and declare himself emperor directly, with support from senators who prefer a young, vigorous leader to a child emperor. The plan has certain logic. It also has catastrophic risk. If Claudius refuses the divorce, if the Senate opposes them, if the Praetorian Guard remains loyal to Claudius, they will both be executed for treason. But Messalina has spent 28 years crossing boundaries, and she has never found one that stopped her. Why should this be different? She thinks about it for 3 days, weighing risk against reward, calculating probabilities, imagining scenarios. On the third day, Silius visits again. "Have you decided?" Messalina looks at him, this beautiful, ambitious man who wants her badly enough to risk everything, and she realizes the decision was made the moment he proposed. Because this is the ultimate transgression, the final boundary, the act that will either make her the most powerful woman in history or destroy her completely. And she needs that binary outcome, needs the existential stakes, needs to feel the edge of annihilation beneath her feet. "Yes, we will marry publicly, soon." Silius grins triumphant. "When?" Messalina calculates quickly. "Claudius is scheduled to travel to Ostia in October for the Neptune festival. He will be gone 3 days. We marry during his absence. Present him with the accomplished fact when he returns. He will be forced to accept it or face civil war." Silius nods slowly. "And if he chooses war?" Messalina's smile is arctic. "Then we make sure we win." The conspiracy expands carefully. Silius recruits supporters from the Senate, men dissatisfied with Claudius's rule, ambitious types who see opportunity in regime change. He promises them positions in a new administration, wealth from confiscated estates of Claudius loyalists, power in the reformed empire. 15 senators agree to support the coup openly, with another 20 offering tacit support if the initial move succeeds. Silius also approaches Praetorian officers, feeling out their loyalty, offering bribes for guaranteed neutrality if violence erupts. The responses are mixed. Some officers are loyal to Claudius, remembering that he gave them their positions. Others are loyal to whoever pays best. Silius secures promises from 3 cohorts to stand aside during the transition, neither helping nor hindering the new regime. It is not a majority of the Praetorian Guard, but it is enough to prevent unified opposition. Messalina contributes by neutralizing potential opponents. Anyone who might warn Claudius or rally resistance disappears through her established methods. 2 senior senators who question Silius too closely about his intentions suffer fatal accidents. A Praetorian tribune known for fierce loyalty to Claudius is found dead in a brothel, officially of heart failure during sex, though poison is suspected. Messalina's spy network, built over 7 years, activates fully. Every conversation in every noble household is monitored. Every potential threat is identified and eliminated. By October, when Claudius prepares to leave for Ostia, the capital is primed for coup. The only question is whether Messalina and Silius have correctly assessed the balance of power, or whether they have catastrophically overestimated their support. October 48 AD. Claudius departs for Ostia with a small retinue, planning to perform traditional sacrifices to Neptune for the empire's maritime prosperity. The journey is 30 miles, a full day's travel by carriage. He will stay 3 days performing ceremonies, inspecting the harbor facilities, returning on the fourth day. The moment his carriage disappears down the Via Ostiensis, Messalina sends word to Silius. Begin preparations. The wedding will occur in 2 days, allowing time for guests to arrive and for arrangements to be perfected. The location is the Gardens of Lucullus, the most beautiful venue in Rome, now officially Silius's property. The symbolism is deliberate. They will marry in gardens stolen from an executed man, affirming that power justifies all actions. Invitations go out that evening to 200 guests. The invitations are not requests but commands. Every recipient understands that attendance is mandatory, that refusal will be interpreted as opposition to the new regime. Within a day, acceptances arrive. Everyone is coming. Everyone is terrified. Everyone understands they are about to witness either the birth of a new dynasty or the most spectacular act of treason in Roman history. The day arrives with unseasonable heat, October sun blazing down on Rome like divine judgment. Messalina wakes early, bathes in milk perfumed with roses, allows slave girls to dress her in traditional bridal attire. She wears the saffron veil of a virgin bride, deliberate mockery of her history. She wears the white tunica recta, woven in the ancient style. Her hair is arranged in the 6 braids required by tradition, bound with ribbons. She looks every inch the proper Roman bride, except that she is already married to the emperor and is about to commit treason by marrying another man. Silius dresses with equal care, wearing a toga praetexta with purple border indicating senatorial rank. He arrives at the gardens early, supervising last details. The altar is prepared, flowers arranged, sacrificial sheep brought and consecrated. Everything must be perfect. This is not just a wedding, but a political statement, a declaration that a new order has arrived. Guests arrive throughout the morning. Senators come with their wives, expressions carefully neutral, concealing terror behind practiced composure. Some bring gifts, playing along with the pretense that this is a normal wedding. Others come empty-handed, refusing to validate the spectacle even passively. Praetorian officers attend in civilian dress, not wanting to appear as if the military endorses the coup, but unable to refuse the invitation. Freedmen close to Claudius's administration arrive sweating, knowing that their positions depend on the emperor, but unable to risk Messalina's wrath by declining. The gardens of Lucullus fill with 200 people, all witnesses to treason. At noon, the ceremony begins. Messalina and Silius approach the altar together, the priest waiting nervously, his hands unsteady as he holds the sacred text. Technically, this priest is committing treason by performing the ceremony, but he was given no choice. Refusal would mean death. He begins the traditional prayers, voice wavering, asking the gods to bless this union. Sheep are brought forward, their throats cut, blood streaming across marble. The entrails are examined for omens. The priest, sweating profusely, declares the omens favorable, because what else can he say? Messalina and Silius join hands. The priest intones the binding words. Do you, Valeria Messalina, take this man as your lawful husband? Her voice is clear and strong. I do. Do you, Gaius Silius, take this woman as your lawful wife? His voice matches hers. I do. The priest performs the final blessing. By the authority of the gods and the laws of Rome, I declare you husband and wife. The words hang in the air, impossible and real, simultaneously. Messalina, Empress of Rome, mother of the heir, is now legally married to someone other than the emperor. Treason has been committed in daylight, witnessed by 200 people, sanctified by religious ceremony. The feast follows, surreal in its normality. Tables laden with food, wine flowing freely, musicians playing traditional wedding songs. Messalina and Silius recline together on the couch of honor, feeding each other morsels of food, kissing openly, performing the role of newlyweds. Guests eat mechanically, conversation forced and stilted. Everyone knows they are participating in something catastrophic, but the momentum carries them forward. Some guests are genuinely supportive, believers in regime change. Most are simply paralyzed by fear, and a few, like Narcissus's agents scattered through the crowd, are quietly observing, memorizing names, preparing reports for the emperor. As evening approaches and wine loosens tongues, Silius becomes bolder. He stands calling for silence, raises his cup in a toast. To my wife, Messalina, the most extraordinary woman in Rome, to our future together, to the new order we will build. The guests raise their cups mechanically, murmuring agreement, eyes flickering with calculation. Silius continues, emboldened by wine and the success of the day. Tomorrow we send word to Ostia, informing Claudius of the new arrangement. He will understand that resistance is futile. He will accept the situation peacefully, retire with honor, allow the empire to move forward under younger, stronger leadership. The words hang in the warm night air. Messalina, sitting beside him, feels a sudden chill despite the temperature. For the first time, doubt touches her. Silius is assuming Claudius will capitulate. But what if he does not? What if the emperor, weak and bumbling as he appears, chooses to fight rather than accept this humiliation? The Praetorian Guard swore oaths to Claudius, not to Silius. The legions across the empire answer to Claudius's appointees. The Senate, however much they resent Claudius, might not support open rebellion. The plan that seemed so logical 3 months ago suddenly appears fragile, built on assumptions that might collapse under pressure. But it is too late now. The marriage is consummated that night, publicly, with witnesses present to confirm legitimacy. Messalina and Silius couple in a bedroom with the door open, moans audible to the gathered crowd outside, physical union confirming legal union. When they emerge at dawn, everyone present knows that no retreat is possible. Messalina has burned every bridge, crossed every line, committed every transgression. She has achieved the ultimate violation, usurping the emperor's place in her own bed. There is no walking this back. Either she wins completely, or she dies completely. Binary outcome, the only kind she understands. As morning light illuminates the gardens, Messalina looks at Silius sleeping beside her and thinks, this is it. This is the limit that will stop me. Either I will become the most powerful woman in history, or I will be dead within a week. The uncertainty is intoxicating. The courier arrives in Ostia at midday, his horse lathered with foam from the 30-mile sprint. He carries a message for Narcissus, not for Claudius, because the freedman has established a private intelligence network that operates parallel to official channels. The message is brief, encoded in Greek that only Narcissus can decipher. The Empress has married Silius. Public ceremony. 200 witnesses. Consummated. Narcissus reads the words 3 times, his hands beginning to quiver. This is the moment he has feared for years, the inevitable culmination of Messalina's escalating transgressions. But he did not expect it to arrive this spectacularly, this publicly, this irreversibly. The Empress has not simply taken another lover, she has committed legal marriage to another man while her husband lives. Under Roman law, this is not adultery. This is treason. This is a coup. Narcissus makes calculations with the speed of someone whose survival has always depended on faster thinking than his opponents. If he tells Claudius immediately, the emperor's first instinct will be denial, then confusion, then possibly forgiveness. Claudius has forgiven Messalina countless times before, overlooking her affairs, ignoring her crimes, choosing marital peace over truth. If given time to process this news, Claudius might convince himself there is some misunderstanding, some explanation that preserves his dignity and his marriage. And if Claudius forgives Messalina this time, Narcissus will die within a week. The Empress will ensure it, eliminating the messenger who brought news of her treason. But if Narcissus acts immediately, bypassing Claudius's capacity for denial, seizing control of the situation before the emperor can think, there is a chance to survive, more than survive, to eliminate the threat Messalina poses to everyone in the imperial administration. The evidence files he has been compiling for years suddenly have purpose. Narcissus stands, steadies himself, and walks to find Pallas and Callistus. The 3 freedmen who have governed Rome while Claudius played scholar must now save their own lives by destroying the Empress. The conspiracy forms in minutes. Pallas, who manages finances, has watched Messalina confiscate fortunes and knows she could turn on the freedmen any day. Callistus, who handles petitions, has seen too many innocent people executed on Messalina's whims. Both men understand that allowing her to consolidate power through marriage to Silius means their own deaths. They agree immediately to Narcissus's plan. Tell Claudius, but tell him in a way that makes action inevitable. No time for reflection, no opportunity for forgiveness. Present him with the accomplished fact of treason, surrounded by loyal guards, with advisors speaking in unified voice about the necessity of swift punishment. Give Claudius no choice but to act like an emperor rather than a cuckolded husband. They find Claudius in the temple where he has just completed sacrifices to Neptune. The emperor is in a good mood, pleased with the ceremony, relaxed by the coastal air. He sees his three most trusted advisors approaching with grim faces, and his smile fades. What has happened? Is there war? Has someone died? Narcissus decides on brutal directness. Messalina has married Gaius Silius, princeps. Yesterday in Rome, public ceremony, legal in all respects. She is no longer your wife. She has committed treason. The words strike Claudius like physical blows. His face goes slack, mouth opening and closing soundlessly, the stutter that he worked for years to control reasserting itself. Married? No. Impossible. You are mistaken. She would never. Pallas interrupts, voice firm. We have multiple witnesses, Caesar. 200 people attended the ceremony. They exchanged vows before priests. They consummated the marriage publicly. Under Roman law, your marriage to her is dissolved. She belongs to Silius now. Claudius sits down heavily on the temple steps, shaking his head repeatedly, denial warring with dawning comprehension. But why? Why would she do this? She is empress. She has everything. Why risk? Callistus kneels beside him, speaking gently but urgently. This is not about love, Caesar. This is a coup. Silius plans to claim imperial power through marriage to the mother of the heir. He has recruited senators, bribed praetorian cohorts, organized a faction. If you return to Rome and forgive this, you will be signing your own death warrant. They will allow you to live only until Silius consolidates power. Then you will die in an accident or illness. You must act now, decisively, or you will lose everything. The emperor's face cycles through emotions too quickly to track. Shock, pain, rage, fear, confusion. His hands shake violently, the neurological condition that afflicts him expressing his psychological distress physically. What do I do? What can I do? The Praetorian Guard pledged to me, but if 3 cohorts have been bought, can I trust the others? The Senate tolerates me but does not love me. If they see weakness, they will side with Silius. I am not a soldier. I am not a politician. I am a scholar who became emperor by accident. How do I fight a coup? The vulnerability in his voice is heartbreaking. For all his imperial power, Claudius remains the disabled man who spent 50 years being mocked, still unable to believe that anyone would follow him by choice rather than necessity. Narcissus makes his move, speaking with authority that comes from knowing this is his only chance at survival. We will return to Rome immediately. I will summon the Praetorian Guard personally, using your name and authority. We will arrest Silius and all conspirators before they can organize resistance. We will execute them immediately, publicly, making clear that treason brings swift death. And we will eliminate Messalina before she can reach you, before she can use her hold over you to escape consequences. Claudius's head snaps up. Eliminate? You mean kill her? Kill my wife? The mother of Britannicus? His voice rises toward panic. Narcissus presses harder. She is not your wife anymore, Caesar. She married another man, and if she lives, she will manipulate you as she always has. You know this. You have forgiven her countless times, and each time she has grown bolder. This is the end point of that pattern. If she survives today, you will not survive the month. Your choice is simple, her life or yours. The bluntness works. Something shifts in Claudius's expression, vulnerability replaced by cold calculation. He is not just a cuckolded husband. He is an emperor facing an existential threat. You are certain? Absolutely certain this is treason, not some misunderstanding? All three freedmen speak simultaneously. Certain. Claudius stands, his shaking hands steadying, the confused scholar disappearing behind imperial authority. Then we return to Rome. Now, assemble a mounted escort, send riders ahead to summon the Praetorian prefects, and send me a list of everyone who attended that ceremony. Every single person. I want names. The transformation is remarkable. For the first time in his 8-year reign, Claudius is acting like an emperor rather than an emperor's placeholder. Fear has focused him, burning away indecision. By the time his carriage leaves Ostia an hour later, he has become someone else. Or perhaps he has finally become himself. A man who understands that survival requires ruthlessness. The journey back to Rome is frantic. The imperial carriage races at maximum speed, horses changed at way stations, guards riding alongside with weapons drawn. Narcissus sits beside Claudius throughout the journey, maintaining constant pressure, ensuring the emperor does not have time to second guess. He recounts every crime Messalina has committed over the years, producing evidence from the files he has been collecting secretly. Lists of executed senators, confiscated estates, forged testimonies, the systematic corruption of imperial government. He presents it all clinically, building an overwhelming case that Messalina has been running a criminal enterprise from within the palace. By the time they approach Rome's walls, Claudius's initial shock has transformed into cold fury. He keeps repeating one phrase. She made me look like a fool. She made the Emperor of Rome look like a fool. The humiliation cuts deeper than the betrayal. For a man who spent his life being mocked, being cuckolded publicly is the ultimate degradation. Meanwhile in Rome, Messalina wakes in Silius's arms, sunlight streaming through the windows of the gardens of Lucullus. For a moment, she feels something close to contentment. She has achieved the ultimate transgression, married another man while the emperor lives, and the sky has not fallen. Then a slave enters, face white with terror, holding a message. Augusta, a courier from Ostia. The emperor returns today. Narcissus is with him. Messalina sits up, instantly alert. When did they leave? The slave's voice shakes. 2 hours ago. They will arrive by late afternoon. Messalina does mental calculations. Too fast. Claudius was supposed to remain in Ostia 2 more days, giving her time to consolidate support, to present the marriage as an accomplished fact impossible to reverse. Now he is returning immediately, which means someone told him, which means this is not acceptance, but confrontation. She shakes Silius awake. We have a problem. Silius, still half drunk from the previous night's celebrations, does not immediately grasp the danger. Claudius is returning? Good. We present ourselves as a unified front, explain that this transition is for Rome's benefit, assure him of a comfortable retirement. Messalina slaps him across the face, hard enough to leave a mark. Wake up. If Narcissus is with him, they are not coming to negotiate. They are coming to kill us. We need to mobilize our supporters now, immediately, or we will both be dead by sunset. Silius sobers instantly. He sends runners to the 15 senators who pledge support, calling them to emergency meeting. He dispatches messengers to the Praetorian cohorts that promised neutrality, activating those guarantees. He begins organizing what should have been organized days ago, an actual military defense of the coup. But everything is rushed, panicked, improvisational. The plan was supposed to unfold over days, allowing careful coordination. Now it must happen in hours, and the machinery of rebellion is not ready. The 15 senators arrive within an hour, assembling nervously in the gardens. Silius addresses them with desperate confidence. Claudius returns early, but this changes nothing. We proceed as planned. I am married to Messalina, mother of the heir. I have legal claim to guardianship over Britannicus and through him to imperial authority. You will accompany me to the Senate House, where we will formalize my position. The Praetorian Guard has been secured. Claudius will see that resistance is futile and accept the new order. One of the senators, Tatius Proculus, speaks up hesitantly. What if Claudius does not accept? What if he orders our arrest? Silius's response is ice. Then we arrest him first. We have the numbers. We have the positioning. We move now before he reaches the palace. But his confidence is hollow, and everyone in the garden knows it. They gambled on Claudius's weakness, and now they will learn if they bet correctly. Claudius's entourage enters Rome through the Ostia Gate at the third hour after noon. The emperor's arrival is marked by trumpet calls, Praetorian cavalry clearing streets, a display of imperial power impossible to miss. Word spreads instantly through the city. The emperor returns early. The Praetorian Guard is mobilizing. Something momentous is happening. Claudius proceeds directly to the Praetorian barracks, not to the palace. This is Narcissus's strategy: secure military control before anything else. The Praetorian prefects, summoned by Narcissus's advance messengers, await nervously. They have heard rumors about Messalina's wedding, but hope to avoid choosing sides. Now the emperor stands before them, and neutrality is no longer possible. Claudius addresses them directly, voice strong despite his stutter, authority that comes from genuine rage. My wife has committed treason. She married another man while I lived. Gaius Silius seeks to use this marriage to claim my throne. Every soldier who remains loyal to me will be rewarded. Every soldier who sides with the Tiara traitors will die. I need your answer now. Do you stand with your emperor, or do you stand with a woman who has made a mockery of Rome? The prefects exchange glances, calculating odds. 3 cohorts were allegedly bribed by Silius, but those bribes were promises of future payment, not gold in hand. Claudius is emperor now, tangible power now, gold in the treasury now. The choice is obvious. Both prefects kneel. We stand with Caesar. Give us names, and we will arrest every conspirator within the hour. Narcissus produces his list: 15 senators, 20 knights, various freedmen and hangers-on, all who attended the wedding ceremony. The prefects divide the targets between cohorts, dispatching arrest teams immediately. The Praetorian Guard fans out across Rome with methodical efficiency, soldiers who have trained for urban operations their entire careers. They know every street, every shortcut, every escape route. The conspirators, unprepared for immediate response, are caught isolated and vulnerable. The first senator is arrested at his home while trying to decide whether to flee. Guards smash through his door, drag him out in his sleeping tunic, throw him into a cart headed for execution. His wife screams from the doorway. His children watch their father disappear, knowing they will never see him alive again. The arrests continue through late afternoon. Silius, still in the gardens of Lucullus with Messalina, receives reports of each capture. Titius Proculus, arrested. Vettius Valens, arrested. Suilius Cessaninus, arrested. The list grows with horrifying speed. Silius realizes with sick certainty that the coup has failed before it began. The Praetorian Guard remain loyal to Claudius. The carefully recruited senators are being rounded up like criminals. The 3 cohorts that promised neutrality have apparently reneged. Because no resistance slows the arrests, everything has collapsed. He turns to Messalina, face draining of color. We need to flee, leave Rome, gather forces in the provinces, organize real resistance. If we stay, we die. But Messalina knows better. There is nowhere to flee. Every gate is watched, every road is patrolled. And even if they escape Rome, no province would harbor them. Provincial governors answered to Claudius's appointees. Legions swore oaths to the emperor. Without military force, which they manifestly do not have, flight only delays the inevitable. She makes a different decision, driven by desperation and deep knowledge of Claudius's weakness. I will go to him. Face to face, I can make him understand. He loves me. He has always forgiven me. If I see him before Narcissus poisons his mind further, I can salvage this. You need to run now while there is time. Get out of Rome. I will handle Claudius. Silius stares at her, recognizing the delusion, but also recognizing he has no better option. If he stays, he will certainly be captured and executed. If he flees, he might escape. He kisses Messalina once, deeply, tasting fear and desperation on her lips. I love you, he whispers, though whether he means it or whether it is just something to say in a final moment is unclear. Then he runs, fleeing through the garden's back gate towards streets he hopes are not yet watched. He makes it 3 blocks before Praetorian guards intercept him. They do not bother with arrest formalities. A sword through the belly, a quick death in the street, his body left where it falls for dogs to worry. Gaius Silius, who wanted to be emperor, dies in a puddle of his own blood in a nameless alley, his dreams ending in agony and obscurity. Messalina does not know Silius is already dead. She makes her own desperate gambit, gathering Octavia and Britannicus, dressing them in travel clothes, beginning the walk toward the Forum. Her plan is simple but psychologically acute. Appear before Claudius in public with his children, creating a tableau of family unity impossible to reject without appearing monstrous. Roman crowds worship children. If she presents herself as a mother protecting her offspring, if she begs forgiveness publicly with the children crying beside her, Claudius will be forced by shame and sentiment to show mercy. The strategy has worked before. She has manipulated Claudius through emotion countless times. Why should today be different? But today is different because Narcissus has positioned himself between Messalina and Claudius, ensuring they do not meet until the Empress's fate is sealed. Messalina walks through Rome's streets with her children, an empress reduced to pedestrian travel, unable to find a litter because her slaves have fled or been arrested. People recognize her, stepping aside hurriedly, eyes averted. No one offers help. No one expresses support. The empress who ruled through fear now discovers that fear builds no loyalty. Octavia, 8 years old, clutches her mother's hand, confused and terrified. "Mama, where are we going? Why are soldiers everywhere?" Messalina cannot answer. What does she say? That she married another man and now her husband wants her dead? That she has committed treason and is trying to escape punishment? She says nothing, pulling her daughter along, Britannicus stumbling behind, 7 years old and crying without understanding why. They never reach the Forum. Halfway there, Narcissus intercepts them with a cohort of Praetorian guards. The freedman has anticipated this exact move, knowing Messalina well enough to predict she will use the children as shields. He blocks their path, face expressionless. "Augusta, the emperor commands you to go to your gardens and await his judgment. The children will remain with imperial guards." Messalina's voice becomes shrill. "I am going to see my husband. You cannot stop me. I am empress, and these are my children." Narcissus's response is flat, final. "You are not empress. You divorced Claudius when you married Silius. You have no authority here. Release the children and go to your gardens, or I will have you dragged there." Messalina realizes she has lost. The children are taken gently but firmly by guards, led away crying for their mother. Octavia's screams echo through the street. Britannicus, too young to understand, simply weeps. Messalina watches them disappear, and something breaks inside her. The children were her last weapon, and Narcissus has disarmed it. She has nothing left. She turns and walks toward the gardens of Lucullus, no longer hurrying, no longer hoping. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across Rome. In a few hours, her life has transformed from triumph to catastrophe. Yesterday, she was a new bride. Today, she is a condemned traitor. The speed of the reversal is almost abstract, too enormous to fully process. She enters the gardens through the main gate, walks past the altar where she married Silius just 30 hours ago, the flowers already wilting, the sheep's blood dried to brown stains. She finds her way to a marble bench beside a fountain, sits down and waits. What else is there to do? She cannot flee. She cannot fight. She can only wait for whatever comes next. For the first time in her life, Messalina has run out of transgressions. There are no more boundaries to cross. She has reached the absolute limit, and the limit is killing her. She spent 28 years searching for a boundary that would hold. Death was the only one that did. The execution squad arrives at dusk. A tribune and 4 centurions, armor clanking in the quiet garden, swords drawn. They find Messalina sitting motionless by the fountain, staring at the water. The tribune approaches carefully, speaking formally. "Valeria Messalina, by order of Emperor Claudius and the Senate of Rome, you are condemned for treason, sentenced to be carried out immediately." Messalina does not move. "I wish to speak with the emperor. That is my right." The tribune shakes his head. You have no rights. You are a traitor. We have our orders. Messalina's laugh is bitter. Of course. Narcissus made sure I would never see Claudius again. He knows I could change his mind. One conversation, and the emperor would forgive me. That is why you are here instead of Claudius. The freedman is protecting his position, not the empire. The tribune is unmoved. Will you cooperate, or must we use force? Messalina stands slowly, her mind racing through possibilities. She could beg, but begging will not save her. She could offer bribes, but she has no access to money. She could threaten, but she has no power to threaten with. Every tool she used to control people has been stripped away. She is simply a woman about to die, and no one cares what she wants. The realization is strangely liberating. For the first time since childhood, consequences have arrived. She spent 28 years pushing boundaries, and finally she has found the boundary that pushes back. She makes a decision. If she must die, she will die on her terms, not theirs. She will not be led to execution like a slave. She will not give them the satisfaction of seeing her beg. In the end, she controlled only one thing, the moment of her own annihilation. Give me your sword, she commands the tribune. He blinks, surprised. What? Her voice is sharp, imperial even now. Your sword, give it to me. I will save you the trouble of butchering a woman. The tribune hesitates, then unsheathes his gladius, offers it hilt first. Messalina takes the weapon, surprised by its weight. She has never held a real sword before. It is heavier than she expected, the blade catching dying sunlight, reflecting gold and red like fire. She positions the point against her chest, feeling where the ribs meet, trying to find the angle that will pierce her heart cleanly. Her hands shake. Not from fear, she is strangely calm, but from the physical difficulty of the act. Suicide is harder than it appears. The body resists self-destruction, muscles refusing to drive the blade home. She presses harder, feeling the point break skin, a sharp pain radiating through her chest. Blood wells up, staining her dress. Still not deep enough. She needs help. She looks at the tribune, and in that moment, a flicker of understanding passes between them. She is asking him to assist in her own death. It is an extraordinary request, intimate in its way. Two strangers collaborating on murder. The tribune steps forward, places his hand over hers on the sword hilt. Together, he murmurs. They push simultaneously, the blade sliding through skin and muscle and cartilage, finding the heart, piercing it cleanly. Messalina gasps, a sharp intake of breath, then nothing more. Her eyes remain open, staring at the sky as her body crumples. The tribune catches her, lowering her gently to the marble paving. Crimson spreads beneath her, life draining out through the wound she helped create. She dies within 30 seconds. The tribune checks for pulse, finds none, closes her eyes with professional efficiency. His centurions stand silently, witnessing the end of the most notorious woman in Rome. None of them speak. What is there to say? They have just watched an empress die by her own hand, assisted by imperial command. The body is left where it fell. Orders specified that Messalina's corpse should remain in the gardens overnight, visible to anyone who cares to look. A warning about the price of treason. Tomorrow it will be cremate without ceremony, ashes scattered, no tomb, no memorial. For now the empress who once controlled Rome lies in her own blood in gardens she stole from a murdered man, killed by the same imperial system she tried to subvert. Claudius receives news of her death while eating dinner in the palace, surrounded by Narcissus, Pallas, and Callistus. A messenger enters, kneels, delivers the report. It is done, Caesar. Messalina is dead by her own hand. Claudius continues chewing his food, face expressionless. He swallows, takes a sip of wine, dabs his mouth with a napkin. Very well. What is for dessert? The three freedmen exchange glances, jolted by the emperor's coldness. They expected grief, anger, something. Instead, Claudius displays complete detachment, as if informed about the death of a stranger. The emperor continues eating, discussing with Narcissus a pending appointment to the grain commission, behaving as if nothing significant has occurred. It is possible this is shock, the mind refusing to process overwhelming trauma. Or perhaps Claudius, after 8 years of humiliation and betrayal, has simply cauterized the wound where his heart used to be. When dinner concludes, he retires to his chambers without mentioning Messalina again. In the morning, he will sign documents ordering her name erased from all public inscriptions, her images destroyed, her existence purged from official history. But tonight, he sleeps soundly, perhaps for the first time in years. The purge continues through the night. 15 senators are executed before dawn, beheaded on the steps of the Senate House, where their blood will remind future senators about the cost of supporting failed coups. Some die begging for mercy, others die with dignity, accepting inevitable fate. Titius Proculus, the elderly senator who questioned the plan from the beginning, manages a bitter laugh before the axe falls. "I told Silius this was madness." His head rolls down the marble steps, eyes still open, eternally surprised. Vettius Valens, the cavalry commander who served as witness at the wedding, is tortured first to reveal additional conspirators. He lasts 3 hours before dying, screaming names that lead to further arrests. Suilius Caesoninus, who tried to escape Rome dressed as a woman, is caught at the city gates and crucified as an example. His body hangs for 3 days before anyone is permitted to cut it down, ravens feeding on his flesh while travelers pass beneath. The properties of all executed conspirators are confiscated, assets transferred to the imperial treasury. Families are stripped of citizenship, children sold into slavery or exile. The legal fiction is that these people never existed, that their names are struck from genealogies, their accomplishments erased. The machine of damnatio memoriae grinds efficiently, destroying lives and legacies with bureaucratic precision. Within a week, it is as if the conspiracy never happened. Mention of Messalina's wedding becomes dangerous. People who attended the ceremony find creative ways to claim they were elsewhere that day. Witnesses suddenly remember events differently. The collective memory of Rome rewrites itself, protecting survivors at the expense of truth. But some truths cannot be erased. Historians preserve the story because it is too extraordinary to ignore. Tacitus, writing 70 years later, devotes extensive passages to Messalina's reign and fall, drawing on eyewitness accounts and official records. He describes her crimes methodically, building a portrait of corruption and excess that shocks even readers accustomed to imperial dysfunction. When wasteful extravagance has exhausted itself, he writes, the only pleasure left is the enormity of the scandal itself. The phrase captures Messalina perfectly. A woman for whom ordinary transgression became insufficient, who needed ever greater violations to feel alive. Juvenal, the satirist, immortalizes her in his sixth satire, a bitter attack on women's vices. He writes of the empress who left the palace at night, disguised with blonde wig, servicing common men in cheap brothels. He describes her returning at dawn, tired with men but never satisfied, bringing back to the imperial bed the stench of the whorehouse. His poetry is vicious, misogynistic, but also strangely sympathetic to the paradox of insatiable desire, the hunger that cannot be fed regardless of how much it consumes. Pliny the Elder, always the scientist, records the 25-man competition with clinical precision. For him, this is natural history, documentation of human physical capacity pushed to absolute limits. He includes the account in his encyclopedic work alongside observations about unusual plants and rare animals, treating Messalina's achievement as a phenomenon worthy of study rather than moral judgment. His dispassionate tone validates the story's authenticity. Pliny is not prone to exaggeration. If he says 25 men, then 25 men it was. These accounts construct a legend that overshadows the historical person. The real Messalina, 16-year-old girl married to a 50-year-old disabled man, thrust into power without preparation, surrounded by sycophants and predators, taught from childhood that ruthlessness brings rewards, disappears beneath the myth. She becomes symbol, cautionary tale, pornographic fantasy, depending on who is telling the story. Her name enters language as synonym for nymphomaniac, applied to any powerful woman with an active sex life. Marie Antoinette, Catherine the Great, countless others will be called Messalina by enemies seeking to delegitimize them through sexual accusation. Yet beneath propaganda and misogyny, Fragments of truth persist. Messalina did accumulate extraordinary power. She did eliminate rivals ruthlessly. She did conduct affairs openly. She did marry Silius in public ceremony while Claudius lived. These core facts are too well documented to dismiss. The question is why? What drove her to such extremes? She was married at 13, given no choice. She bore her first child at 14, during an era when childbirth killed one woman in three. She became empress at 16, inheriting power she never sought. She governed during Rome's most corrupt period, surrounded by men who provided blueprints for tyranny without consequence. She learned that being feared meant being safe, that showing weakness invited destruction. In this context, her cruelty makes terrible sense. She was surviving the only way she knew how. The sexual transgression is harder to explain through pure pragmatism. Power dynamics might account for eliminating rivals and confiscating property. They do not account for the lupanars of Suburra, for competing with prostitutes, for risking everything to marry Silius. These actions suggest something deeper: addiction, compulsion, a void that no amount of power or pleasure could fill. When you can do anything, when all boundaries dissolve, existence becomes paradoxically empty. Messalina seems to have been searching desperately for something that would make her feel real, alive, significant. Each transgression briefly provided that feeling, then faded, requiring larger transgression to achieve the same effect. Escalating doses, diminishing returns, eventual self-destruction when the final boundary is crossed. Her children paid the price. Octavia, traumatized by watching her mother's downfall, grew into a damaged woman who married Nero and was murdered by him in 62 AD. Britannicus, robbed of his mother at 7, was poisoned by Nero in 55 AD before he could claim the throne. Messalina's legacy was not just her own death, but the deaths of everyone she loved, casualties of her inability to stop pushing until something pushed back. Claudius remarried within a year, choosing Agrippina the Younger, his own niece, a woman who made Messalina look restrained by comparison. Agrippina poisoned Claudius in 54 AD to install her son Nero as emperor, proving that the problem was not one woman, but a system that concentrated power without accountability. Messalina was symptom, not cause. The gardens of Lucullus, where Messalina died, passed through various owners over following decades. The bloodstain on the marble was scrubbed away. The fountain where she sat awaiting death continued flowing, indifferent to human tragedy. By the 2nd century AD, no one remembered that an empress had died there. This is how empires process trauma: through amnesia, through erasure, through collective agreement to forget. But the story survived because it touched something fundamental about power and transgression and self-destruction. Messalina became legend precisely because she embodied extremes that fascinate and horrify in equal measure. She showed how far a human being can go when nothing stops them, and she showed what waits at the end of that journey: annihilation. Her life was a 28-year experiment in boundary violation, and the experiment's conclusion was unambiguous. Some limits exist not as social construct, but as existential fact. Cross them, and you die. 2,000 years later, her name persists while the names of virtuous Roman empresses are forgotten. This is the perverse immortality of transgression. Wickedness is remembered while goodness fades into obscurity. Messalina wanted to matter, to leave a mark, to prove she existed. She succeeded beyond imagination. Her story will be told as long as people are fascinated by the darkest possibilities of human nature, by the question of what happens when power meets appetite, meets absence of restraint. The answer she provided is clear. You get 25 men in 24 hours, a marriage that destroys an empire, and death in a stolen garden at age 28, remembered forever as both monster and warning.